guys, what's up? Welcome back to my channel. Today we are here with my real estate agent, Jonathan. You guys loved him in the last video and we got a lot of questions from you guys all about like New York City real estate, kind of like working in real estate, buying, renting, co-op, condo, what does owning an apartment look like? Questions all across the board. So we're gonna address it all today with Jonathan. So thanks for being here.
Of course, thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be back.
Yeah.
Last video was so fun. I love like showing you around and everything. So this will be great to kind of give everybody some answers. I feel like so much was left unanswered.
Oh, yeah. For sure. So go watch that video if you guys haven't. But I'm really interested to kind of like get started. If you could tell me a little bit about how you got into real estate, how long you've been working in real estate, and like sort of like what you love about it.
Yeah, so I'm coming up on 5 years this year, which is crazy. I went to college in the city, and then I thought I was gonna go like super traditional, just like go work in an office, whatever, work in marketing. And then towards the end of college, I was having these like nightmares about working in an office, if I'm being so honest. Like I couldn't do it, I don't know why. I've always loved houses. I've been posting houses on Instagram for like years, just like things that I loved, whatever. And then I realized, oh my God, and I also love people. Mm-hmm. How do I like meld that together? And this just made the most sense. So the summer after college, I took my real estate course and then I got into it like right at the beginning of August, and I've been in it ever since. I was terrified of working in an office, so I knew that there was never an option for me to go and sell office space. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
There's just no magic in that. I love like the personal aspect of residential. I love the people. It just like makes more sense to me. Like I don't know how many desks you're gonna need. Like I don't care.
Yeah.
But like I do care like how many bedrooms you need and like what are you gonna put in here and those things. So I knew residential was like exactly where I was gonna go.
Perfect.
It definitely like made the most sense to just kind of fall into that. COVID hit like 6 months after though.
How did that affect like you and your business?
It was really crazy. Like I had to move home because I was living in the city, and then I was just like, I have this job that like basically just got shut down 6 months in. Like what do I do? Yep. So I moved home, and then I ended up pivoting out into the Hamptons and helping everyone that was coming from the city move out east. So we'll be in contract in under 90 days.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
I want Jonathan out here. He's my right-hand man in the city, and I know he can help me leverage city clients to close transactions out here.
Yeah.
And now you're a pro.
And now I'm here, yeah, it's been good. I mean, it takes a long time, you know?
Yeah.
You can't, I tell everyone when they're first starting, I'm like, you cannot bypass the time and like the knowledge that the time teaches you.
So we got a lot of questions then kind of about like renting and buying sort of in New York City. So I kind of wanted to talk through, it seems like, at least for maybe that's just like everybody that I know is a renter. Like I feel like there's people who are literally like city for lifers and they're renting. Mm-hmm. It feels that way. I guess like as a resident, you talk to most people, it's like, yeah, I rent. Like why do so many people in New York City rent?
Yeah, I think like renter culture is just a little easier, right? Mm-hmm. Like I just saw Janna McPartland on a podcast, and she was saying she bought a house really early in her career, and then she sold it like 3 years later because she hated the maintenance.
I owned a house for 3 years and I didn't like that experience at all. The shower leaked, so then had to get all new furniture, had to fix the bathroom, a stair fell off. It felt like a lemon.
She didn't want to have to do any work, and I completely understand that, especially in a city like New York. We're very busy, you know what I mean? So like the last thing some people want to deal with is like calling the plumber and having to figure out why the floor is broken and what they're going to do about their countertops. So I also think like when you're surrounded by people that are spending money on rent, you don't like, there isn't as much of a consideration as like, well, what if that money was going into myself as an investment? Because like everyone around me is renting, you know, but like in the suburbs, mostly everybody owns. So that feels like the thing to be doing.
Yeah.
I just think in New York, it's easier to rent. It's less work. Down payment is very difficult. You know, you have to save money. And in a city like New York, saving money isn't the easiest because it's so expensive to live here. Then on top of that, it's like, okay, I'm going to put into my regular savings, and now I have to start thinking about putting down a down payment, which isn't always going to be small.
For people not watching, for people maybe not like familiar with New York, is it 40 times the rent you have to make?
Yeah, you have to make 40 times the rent
as your annual income to qualify to rent.
So it's on a $4,000 apartment, you have to be making like $160,000.
Wow.
And then if you have a guarantor, they have to be making 80 times the rent.
So that would be like a parent or like a. Yeah, I feel like it's really incredibly difficult for people.
It is incredibly difficult, and now like there are services, you know what I mean? Like you can use something like the guarantors, and they'll be your guarantor on it, but then you have to pay for that every month.
Oh, it's like a built, it's an additional.
Like you pay that company to guarantee.
Oh my gosh, wow. Also just in renting, working with a real estate agent.
Yeah.
So I just went on like Street Easy when I was renting and like found mine that way. And I think at the time I didn't have to pay a real estate fee and like I kind of got lucky. But I hear from a lot of people that there is like.
When did you move?
In 2020.
Okay, yeah.
So that's probably, and then I stayed in my building and stuff.
2020 was a really interesting time in the market because like there were no fees anywhere because there was nobody renting apartments. So everybody just wanted the apartment. So landlords were like super willing to pay the fee at the time. Fees have come back. What I tell people is like, if you have the time to do the rental on your own at a certain price point, like do it yourself. You know what I mean? You don't have to pay me. But there is a certain level of clientele that I work with now. Like I do like townhouses for $50,000 a month. I do lofts in Soho for like $25,000, $30,000 a month. That level of clientele like doesn't necessarily have the time to be like sifting through Street Easy and looking and whatever. And
of course,
you know what I mean? So
yes.
I try to cater more towards that aspect of the business and rentals now because I understand that like fees are prohibitive for people. I know that they're expensive. 15% is a lot of money. It's almost 2 months of rent on top of what you're already paying. It's basically like paying an extra 2 months of rent. So you're paying security deposit and first month's rent. And then on a 15% fee, you're paying like another 2 months of rent. So it's basically like 4 months of rent all at once.
So this is why, for context, if you guys are watching, a lot of people don't move right to New York City if it's like straight out of college or if it's like right when they get a job, maybe they'll move somewhere like or live at home for a bit, live out in the suburbs if you can work remotely to save up money because it's a lot at once. I've never had a roommate in the city, so but if you are living with a roommate partner or whatever it may be, you guys both provide like your documents and everything. Then when you're renting,
so you can like jointly qualify with roommates. So let's say your apartment is $5,000 a month and you have to be making $200,000. Basically, you and your roommate just collectively have to make $200,000. You don't both have to be making $200,000. You can combine guarantors as well. So like there's ways around it. Having a roommate is like a great way to get into the city to start because it can be very expensive to live here. Everyone's like praying for a lottery apartment and like I understand why they're so cheap.
The ad lists apartment sizes, the number of people allowed in a household, and very importantly, the income limits.
Those don't come around a lot, so like finding other ways to make the city affordable is like super important.
Yeah.
And also depending on where you want to live, you know what I mean?
Of course. A lot of people are moving to the city for like the summer, like, you know, that's a hot time. People graduate college, whatever.
Yeah.
A lot of questions on what neighborhoods do you recommend for those first moving to New York? And of course, this is general, like generally speaking, just or maybe ones that you've found like hidden gems that could be a little less expensive than the average cost or something.
When someone calls me, it's like, I gotta live below 14th. That's always always the initial. However, what you realize is like living below 14th, you're blowing all of your money on a closet. You know, people call me, I want a dishwasher, I want a washer dryer, and I only want to spend $3,500 a month. It's not happening. It's not happening downtown. Like, I don't know how else to tell you, it's not happening downtown. Uptown is where I have found like the most opportunity.
Okay.
Upper West Side, Upper East Side, they're gorgeous, by the way. Like, and I think they've gotten kind of this stigma that they're old and stuffy.
It's an Upper East Side.
Dude. It's the 10th horse that died this year. That's 10 horses I've had to replace. Why does anybody come up here? It is a horrible, vapid wasteland.
Excuse me, where's the Met?
Oh, right down here and you make a right.
Yeah, you can't miss it. Thank you.
But it couldn't be further from the truth. I actually have found like so many businesses are moving in up there. We're getting a ton of restaurants from downtown are starting to go up there. So you're really getting like a life. It kind of feels like Murray Hill all grown up in the best way.
Okay, cool.
Like you lose the frat stars and you pick up like, it's like a little chicer.
Love it.
You know?
Yeah. Is there anywhere like neighborhoods that come to mind also in like Brooklyn or Queens or like other boroughs maybe?
You can still find really great apartments out in like deep Bushwick.
Okay. There's good subway lines over there too.
I mean, it's just the L, but if you live like deep enough, then you start to pick up like the Jay-Z. So like you can have other lines.
Okay, cool.
You know? Or like Ridgewood is great. That's like the bottom of Queens though, you know? So then you have like the M and the L. I think like downtown Brooklyn is great. I think Cobble Hill is beautiful. Williamsburg, it's a little expensive. It's like living below 14th.
The prices, when I was looking like a few months ago, just like generally gauging, it's like pretty much what I pay in the Lower East Side currently, which I was shocked to find.
Yeah, Williamsburg, I mean like they have Chanel in Williamsburg.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
they're putting in Hermes there.
Exactly. As those things start to come in, you lose kind of the affordability that I think Brooklyn used to have. I was a resident of Queens for years. I used to live really far out. Like near Forest Hills, and it was so cheap.
I love it over there. That was so nice.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
My rent used to be $950.
Oh, okay.
Which was like sickening. It's still pretty cheap out there, but it's not that cheap anymore. Like
that's a great deal.
Yeah, that was how many years ago did I move out there? Like 7 years ago, I was out there.
Gotcha.
crazy. Oh my God, I'm so old. Kew Gardens and Forest Hills have a park, Forest Park. It's the third largest park in the boroughs.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's
I
like
would never know that.
Central Park, Prospect Park, Forest Park. It's huge.
I do hear a lot about Long Island City, but I feel like that's expensive.
It's expensive.
True, yeah.
But they're beautiful buildings. You know, it's full amenity, pool, gym, everything. Like, they love that. Waterfront Long Island City is equally as expensive as Manhattan.
Opinions on like a FiDi?
I think FiDi is great, especially
Yeah.
for roommates. The apartments are enormous because a lot of them are conversions. So you can flex them. I see a lot of like students go live in FiDi because they turn like 1 bedrooms into 4 bedrooms. You know what I mean?
Tell us about a flex for those people who may not know.
Invest in a good flex wall. You
So
know?
it's basically a wall that avoids the legal term of a real wall by like an inch or two. Is that kind of how they get away with it?
It like depends on the kind of wall. So they have like pressurized walls and those go floor to ceiling.
Okay.
But you have to like have some sort of light pass. So either you'll get like a window on the top or you'll get like a door with a glass middle, you know,
Gotcha.
something like that. So
And the resident would put that in. You'll see apartments in 2-bed flex 3, so then you cut off kind of some of the like maybe like the living room or someone else's bedroom or something
Yeah.
to create that space.
the one thing about flex walls is like you don't usually get a closet.
You have to figure out like a
You have to figure out, like, what you're
garment
gonna do.
rack or like
Yeah.
something like that. Cool. Okay, really good to know that
Yeah.
that's an option.
There's definitely options like for value in the city. I think there's a misconception that like nobody can afford anymore, but I do think you can find things that you can afford.
Great. Love
Yeah.
that. Like if someone's moving to the city for the first time, and of course everyone's preferences are like what they want are different. You know, some people might say, I totally need the dishwasher, totally
Yeah.
whatever. But like what are things in your professional opinion, having seen so many apartments now, that you would prioritize?
I'm accessibility to subway all day long, and I'm accessibility to multiple subway lines. A lot of people will move to a place and have one, and usually it's like a local line. I'm a big fan of having multiple subway lines and not being on a local. Like I love an express stop, you know?
Yep.
I used to live right near the 86th Street stop on the Upper East Side, and that was amazing because I had the 456 and I had the queue. So it was like I picked up 4 subway lines. I could get anywhere I wanted very quickly. I
Great.
could go from the Upper East Side to FiDi in 20 minutes.
Cool.
In Brooklyn, you know, it's hard when you live like kind of deep, like on the L line. That's all you have. And if the L shuts down, which it does all the time, now what?
I have some friends that live in Greenpoint. They love it, but I think there's only one.
The G.
One subway line over
And the
there.
G's tough.
What else would you say? Would you say? I get a lot of like, oh, the space. You're saying
Yeah.
that, you know, it's like the size of a closet. Like, from what you've seen, is the space something that we should prioritize, or should we prioritize maybe like more updated, or what would you say?
I think it's like what you're willing to put up with. You know what I mean? Like some people absolutely won't live with a white refrigerator because they just like hate the aesthetic of a white refrigerator.
The garage fridge.
Yeah, the garage fridge, but like whatever. You know what I mean? Like the white refrigerator might be in an apartment that's enormous, and like sometimes the biggest apartments aren't the most updated, but that's okay. You know, I love an apartment with like a hallway closet of some kind, a coat closet, a pantry, something like that. I think that way, especially if you're living with roommates, you're not all like stuffed into your room. It's not just like a little storage unit. You have like extra places to put things and be. A lot of people prioritize like laundry in unit. I think you can get away with laundry in building. I know some people are like grossed out by like shared laundry.
Then you must not live in New York City,
Yeah.
then, because
It's
that's like just what people, or you send out your laundry. That I know people who they'll live somewhere that like the rent is a little bit less because there's no laundry in unit or in building.
Yeah.
And then factor in like the laundry cost. Basically,
God, I was
they'll
a
like do the
drop-off.
math of kind of doing that and be like, it's $20 a month or a week to send out my laundry.
Yeah, I was a drop-off king, please. I didn't do my own laundry for like 6 years.
It was all taken care of, all folded, all
Oh my
that.
God, it comes out pancake. It's my favorite. I love drop-off. I think if you have roommates, a dishwasher. I'm sorry, don't live with roommates without a dishwasher. It can cause way more like headache than it's worth.
Okay.
And dishwashers aren't hard to find.
Oh, really?
Laundry is way harder to find than a dishwasher.
All right, that's good to know.
Because dishwashers are very easy for
Cool.
like buildings to install.
Yeah. Wow.
New York City rental prices have just climbed and climbed and climbed. And I think it's time you stop paying somebody else to live and you start paying yourself.
I always hear that whenever I tell people that commonly like live outside of New York. They're like, oh, you're throwing away your money on rent. And I try to justify, like, if I do have the opportunity to own, maybe it's something worth seriously considering. We're gonna pivot the conversation a little bit to buying. And I know we mentioned that like this is definitely something that is a little bit more rare to see, I guess, in the city, or at least from maybe where I'm at, I guess, in my life and everything. How to know even if you're ready to buy? How to know what you can afford? Let's just say you're in a position you're like, oh, maybe I should be buying.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, like that's kind of the position that I was in a few months ago, and that's kind of why we initially started talking, because I truthfully didn't know. I had no idea. I was like, maybe I'm ready.
There must have been a threshold where you were paying a certain amount every month where it was like, I think I might, you know what I mean? Like now it feels investable. I think if you're paying like $1,500 a month, like, buying something might not feel like super attainable, but I think like you do get to a certain level monthly where it's like, well, let me start doing the math.
Honestly, it was my next move because I knew I wanted something very updated or like new, basically, with a lot more space than I currently have, and with like at least 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. So kind of like doing the math in that, and like looking at my options. I started looking online and seeing like what the rent would be in, you know, some of these buildings, and I was like, well, that's a lot. Like now we're at like $8,500 a month plus range, basically. So then I was like, maybe I should consider buying something that honestly I never thought I would do. Like I thought that maybe I would go my whole life without buying in the city. I always saw in the suburbs. But I never really pictured myself to be like a homeowner here.
I think like rent pricing is getting so expensive in the city, especially like when you do want amenities and nice and big and storage and everything, you know what I mean? Like you really do start to end up just basically living in a condo already, but usually somebody else owns it. So it's like you might as well go and start looking into buying it for yourself. I think like the biggest consideration is like you do have to have the down payment. A lot of like TikTok and Reels, like people be like, you only have to put 3% down. But like you can't really do that in the city. It's not like a single family house. Like it doesn't work the same. And I think like that misconception has like allowed a lot of people to be like, well, I can buy, you really don't have to put that much down, but like you really can't.
Or I've seen a lot of like, they'll just say the mortgage payment and like they don't say anything about like how much like the down payment would be or something. And it's like, oh, well, you could get this for a mortgage payment of like, you know, $3,000 a month or something. And you're like, oh, that's amazing. That's also what I thought. And then I kind of started doing like the math calculations behind it all. And you're like, okay, you pretty much have to put down 20%. It seems in a lot of these places. Have you seen less?
I would put down, I mean, condos, you can put down 10%.
You can?
Yeah, okay. But someone asked me when we were like getting the question, someone asked me about private mortgage insurance, which is when you put down less than 20%, sometimes you have to take out insurance.
Okay.
And that's an added cost. And they had asked, they were like, should I save more money to avoid PMI?
I have heard of that, like the PMI,
You can look into how much it's gonna cost, you know, if it's a negligible amount, maybe you put down less. But like, if it really is an amount that feels like a hindrance to you, because like your monthly expenses are something that you really need to have in order. You need to know how much you can afford every month comfortably. Don't be house poor. You know, like know that there's a steady income stream coming. Know that the amount of money that you're spending is something that you can feel comfortable giving away every month. You don't wanna be like, pulling it out of your hands. Purchasing is not always the most obtainable, and there is such a value in renting. It allows people to live in places that they might not be able to afford if it was just purchases. What is your down payment, and like what is that 20% of? Know that. You know, a lot of people like to get really aspirational. I have some people call me and they're like, I can afford $2 million, and then in reality, they can't. You know, but you want to be really aspirational, and it's, for me, don't be aspirational when you call. Let's be honest. You know what I mean? Like, let's be real, and like, let's know what we can look at. Because like, for me, it's about setting expectations appropriately. And like, I can show you $2 million, I can show you $10 million. But like, if you can afford it, why are we here? You know? We can just come look at it for fun on a Sunday. You don't want people to get too excited about things that they can't afford. But I know, like we were talking about it in the last video, there kind of is options for everybody now.
Okay.
They're really, like, you can buy a $300,000 studio in the city. You can buy a $500,000 one bed. Like, they're there. But there's buildings that are income restricted. You can only buy them if you're making a certain amount of money.
Give me an example of like what that would look like.
So it's called an HDFC, and it's...
Is this one of them?
Yeah, this is one of them.
What would the income requirement be on something like that?
This building was $62,000 or less. So like, you can only buy into it if you're making X amount or less.
Oh, I see.
So it like is saving those apartments for people that necessarily aren't making a ton of money, but they want to get into the real estate game.
That's great.
You know? So like, there's a real way to do it. Oftentimes they are not the nicest apartments immediately. You know, you're usually buying them, they need work, because like whoever was living them has been sitting on them forever. Because like the maintenance cost is like $300 a month. Like they're so cheap.
Because it's not just the down payment, and then of course your mortgage payment. There's a lot of other payments that go into when you're buying in New York.
If you're in a condo, you have common charges, and that's for all the common spaces. All of your amenities, the doorman, everything like that is thrown into your common charges, and then those are separate from your monthly taxes.
And those are both just in addition to your mortgage
Yeah.
monthly payments.
You have to pay those two as well.
Okay, gotcha.
In a co-op, your common charges and your taxes are combined. And then a percentage of your maintenance is tax deductible.
So they can give you an idea of, like, you know, when you're looking
Yeah.
of like what the common charges, I guess, and the taxes would be. Can those, after you purchase, can those fluctuate?
Yeah, so like you'll always see your taxes go up, right? Like that's just the nature of the game. Common charges will also go up, but it just kind of like depends, you know? So in big buildings, common charges don't fluctuate as much because you're sharing it amongst more people. The smaller your building, the less cost sharing there is. So you'll feel those increases more.
Gotcha.
You know?
Okay, yeah. So
It's also dependent on like how big your apartment is. It's done by like square footage. That's how they kind of calculate how much yours is going to go up.
understandable. Let's talk about the difference between a condo and a co-op.
Yeah.
It seemed like in Manhattan, a lot of them, especially Upper Manhattan, were co-ops.
Yeah, so you have a lot of like older buildings on the Upper East Side, Upper West Side, so a ton of co-ops up there. But they've been around a long time, so you find that they have really high maintenance. There's a heavy prevalence of these like really high maintenance buildings now because they've just been around forever, and like running them costs a lot.
To upkeep and yeah. So what would you say the main distinctions? I still am struggling to kind of understand like the differences between a condo and a co-op.
So in a condo, you're buying real property. It's like buying a single family house.
Okay.
In a co-op, you're buying into a corporation.
And the business is the building.
The building.
Okay.
So you own shares of the building. Mm-hmm. You own the air rights of an apartment in that shared building. Okay.
Someone asked, like, can you explain like how owning an apartment like works? Because it is kind of, when you think about it, it is kind of weird. When you own a house, obviously you own the land, every wall. So what's the difference there? Like with a condo and a co-op, like do you own all the walls in all of them or not really? Because
so in a co-op you own nothing. You don't own, you have like the air rights to the space inside.
Okay. Are you still able to paint, to drill into the walls, to do everything?
You can do all of that. You can operate in it like a house. They're not going to be like no holes in the wall, you know? But, you know, in certain instances like the windows. So sometimes like you own the windows, sometimes the building owns the windows. It just kind of depends.
But in a condo, it's all yours.
Yeah, like
everything that it touches. Like, how do you?
So like you own the walls, you own the inside of the walls, like the plumbing, everything. Like that's all yours. The benefit of a co-op is that you can get in cheaper because it's not real property.
Gotcha.
So co-ops are great for like first-time home buyers that don't have a ton of money but like want to buy something in the city. Go get a co-op. Go look at a co-op. Actually, call me and we'll go look at a co-op. I've put a lot of people in really lovely co-ops. I think a lot of people have heard that the interview is really scary and that the board package is crazy and all of these things.
Is that so? When you apply and like do everything, you have to go through a round?
So when you apply, basically you have to do a whole board application. So that is either going to be online or sometimes how it will be is like you send me all the paperwork and then I have to put together an application for you. They like rip your finances apart. So like it's a lot of your finances. It's all of your bank statements, all of your investment accounts, everything. In a condo, you still have to go through a board app, but it's much more minimal. Like there's no interview. You just like have to give them paperwork so that they know that they're not letting you in and you have no money.
Gotcha.
Like you didn't con your way into getting all the way here.
Yeah. So then with buying, everyone says, you know, you got to do it when the time's right. You gotta watch the market. How are we watching the market? What does that mean?
The news is always talking about housing. Whether or not you watch the news, like they're always talking about it in some capacity because people are always interested. I'm gonna use like COVID as a good example of a time where I don't think people should have bought. During that time, there was this like weird frenzy, not even weird, I know why. Mortgage rates dropped to like 2.753%. As mortgage rates get smaller, the amount that you can afford gets bigger. So everyone was starting to buy these really big houses because their down payment could be less, because the mortgage was less, and their payment was less. It all made sense, right? So then all of a sudden there was all these people like ready to go, oh, we gotta lock in these really low rates, and the frenzy started, and then you saw people bidding hundreds of thousands of dollars over ask, especially in the suburbs. Interestingly, in the city, COVID, you kind of saw like a down where we were seeing penthouses that were listed for 40 million selling for like 20.
Wow.
You know, like they were really
well, I feel like there was the panic and that New York City's never coming back.
Exactly.
And that,
the city always comes back. Even like after things as tragic as like 9/11, like people were really worried that the city was never going to recover. It recovered in leaps and bounds. You know, COVID, same thing. We've seen it come back. I think we're not feeling the effects of COVID anymore, but now we're feeling the effects of like higher mortgage rates, which has really stunted the market in a lot of places because there's just not as much excitement because now it's more expensive for people to own. You know, a 6% mortgage rate, a 7% mortgage rate is very different than a 3%. And the amount of house someone can afford has gotten much less. Like I said, people have really big aspirations, and sometimes it's hard to like have that reeled in.
Yeah.
And be like, okay, well, what I realistically can afford now is like this, and I used to be able to afford that. So why would I buy?
Just the mortgage rate, the difference of the mortgage rate.
Yeah.
How long after buying something would you recommend someone hold on to it to sell, like, or to
really maximize your time? 10 years.
You want to hold something for 10 years?
Yeah, I think like really maximize the market because the market, you know, goes like this. So feel it, you know what I mean? And you can tell, you know, if the market starts getting really hot, ditch your apartment, you know what I mean? On the flip side of that coin, why it was very hard to get people to sell and why inventory was so low when the market was so hot was that people wanted to sell, but they had nowhere to go.
Yeah, because then you have to find something else.
And then you might be overpaying. So there is like an adverse side of that coin as well. But you can kind of tell when like the market is good and like when the market's bad. That's why having a realtor and having someone that is really in touch with what's going on in the market all the time is good.
Great.
Because like we can kind of give you a little bit of a clear idea, like, hey, I don't think now's the time. If you don't have to.
And someone who kind of advocates on your behalf and like
exactly. Sometimes like you have to sell. Like it or not, you have to sell. So that's always going to be the right time. When you have to get rid of your apartment, you have to get rid of it. But like there are other times where like you can maximize it, and other times when you just kind of have to let it go.
It's so funny because I used to be one of those people where I feel like the word mortgage was said and I was like, oh, I'm already sleeping. Like, oh my gosh, boring. And then now I'm an adult.
Yeah.
And I'm over here on the phone with the fucking mortgage guy. So like, and I mean, I didn't know anything about any of this. Like, this is all so new to me. I didn't understand what the rates even, I knew rates are good, rates are bad, but I didn't understand how that affected me as a buyer. Kind of figuring that out and doing the calculators and things and playing around with the number and seeing how different a percentage point or two could be.
It's crazy, especially when you're talking like big number.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think once I came to like just sort of the financial decisions of like what I wanted, what I could afford, like I feel like everything kind of came together like a puzzle. There were some restrictions, I think, like sometimes I guess like buildings or companies will like, you know, give you an approved list of.
So they have like approved lenders.
Approved lenders.
Yeah. And those are, especially like in bigger buildings, like and in new dev too, it can be hard to get financing sometimes depending on how the building has sold. So like they have people that will absolutely give you the mortgage for that and they'll send you those people just because like they'll do it quick and they know that they can close it. I think initially we're all like, let's use our banker, let's use our guy at wherever. And sometimes like that works, you know what I mean? But other times it can be good to shop around and see if you can get a lower rate from somebody else.
I feel really grateful, I think, to have gone through this experience and like have learned all of this. Because I feel like I'm like the first, I feel really grateful, but I'm like the first of like my friends to go through it. So it's not, but I know that everyone else is gonna go through it and I'm like, I got the tips for you now.
I think being an informed purchase, like being an informed buyer or seller is so important. And like finding people and finding the network around you that can speed that up for you because it can be so exhausting and daunting to realize like, okay, so I have to get a lawyer and I have to talk to the lawyer about X, Y, and Z and I have to get a mortgage guy and I have to talk to him about this, and this. Oh, and then I have to go and do this and what does this mean in the offer? Like there's so much about this process that I think not everyone is real. Like you just don't realize it until you're in it.
This has been consuming my entire life, guys, for the past few months. If anyone's been wondering what I've been up to, I'm on the phone. Yeah. That's what I'm doing.
You called me like in January, right at the end of January. Your original plan was end of the summer. For the record.
But I am an Aries, and I do like to rush things.
Yeah, and I had told you, the market right now is good. It's winter, it's cold, people aren't buying, the concessions are still out there. We can still kind of make a deal happen, which is why like we pushed it up, and we did kind of know like there might be an opportunity for you to get out of your lease, whatever. So if you found the right thing, we were good to go.
Yeah.
But I think like if you really do have like a heavy 6-month timeline, start looking like 6 months before you want to move in. In a co-op, start looking earlier, 8 months.
Really?
The board application process can take a minute.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great to know.
I have some people call me that are like curious, you know, they're not necessarily ready to go, but they're definitely starting to look.
The thing is, once you start looking, you get excited. I will say, because that was me too. And then you get ahead of yourself, and you're like, oh my gosh, wait, I want this.
But you are front loading the work. This is the hardest part, is just acquiring the property.
I mean, in college, I feel like they would just give us a place. Like, I just had to say my name. Like, it seemed like it was nothing.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, you're so right with the paperwork. It definitely is it's a very, what do I want to use as the word? Invasive?
For sure.
Process. Yeah. And I know you even said right away, like when we started working together, like, look, we're going to be sharing a lot of numbers.
It's all confidential.
It's all confidential.
I often like get people in the beginning and they're really nervous to like share things with me and whatever. And I'm always like, just be honest with me. Like, please be honest with me, because I can work a lot faster with you if we're just, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't care how much money you're making. I do, in the sense that like, I want to make sure that like we can afford what we're looking at, but like other than that, like that number is going to be so far out of my head in about 4 minutes, because I've got other things I'm focusing on too. The people that trust me the most are the people that are like, oh, my friend told me about you.
Yeah,
you know?
Gotcha. Or like meeting organically or things like that, because that's like literally how it was. I feel like when we met, it wasn't like, and here's my real estate pitch. It was like, I just had met you at events, like we had great banter, like we just
I would say like we were friends first, and then
for
like
sure.
this just like kind of fell into place when it was like, hey, I need somebody.
For sure.
You know?
So how would you say to someone watching, maybe they live in Wisconsin and they are looking for a real estate agent, like how do you like establish trust?
Ask around, like ask your friends, you know, who did they work with? If you don't have any friends that have never done real estate, like you have someone in your life that's worked in real estate, ask them. I love to like go to somebody first, you know, figure out who they are. If you don't have that, start Googling who's doing the business in your town. Figure out who's really a heavy hitter, call them. They might not be your direct person, but they will definitely have people working under them that are looking to work, and those are often the people that are the hungriest, and they're willing to, you know, really be there for you. They're not as busy as the heavy hitters, but those are people that can give you the most amount of time. If you like something, make a move on it. I think a lot of people like dance around and hope that like another better deal's gonna come through. I don't want to be in a rush, whatever. But like, if you feel drawn to something, if you feel like I found what I want to live in, make an offer on it. You know?
Yeah, let's
move forward with
it.
it.
Yeah.
Because what you don't want to do is think about that apartment that you didn't get because you just like stood around too long hoping that like maybe something else will come. Something else will always come, of course. But when you find the thing that draws you to it, lean into it. Don't be scared of it.
I love it. I think that's the perfect note to end on, because wow, we covered literally everything. But I want to leave it kind of on a cliffhanger, guys. Like, I can't spill all the beans just yet.
I love knowing the secret too.
But thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
If everyone wants to check you out, or if anybody in New York wants to work with you, I'll leave all of your information down below. Where's the best place? They'll message you on Instagram? Or?
Message me on Instagram, shoot me an email.
Thank you guys for watching. If you haven't given this video a big thumbs up, please do. Subscribe if you want to stay tuned for everything that's coming. And we'll see you next time. Bye.